Today is Juneteenth, a day marking the moment the last enslaved people in Texas learned they were free, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And today is supposed to be a celebration of freedom. But right now, it's really a reminder that our rights, granted on paper, have often required generations of struggle to become real. In Georgia this week, Republican lawmakers announced they will not redraw the state's congressional maps during a special session called by Governor Brian Kemp. The lawmakers say that there's not enough time this session, but suggested they could revisit a redraw before 2028. The debate comes amid a broader fight playing out across the South after the Supreme Court gutted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, passed in 1965 to protect black political power after generations of discrimination. And Republican-controlled legislatures have started to redraw congressional districts in ways voting rights experts warn will turn back the clock, weakening the political influence of black voters and pushing black representatives out of Congress. And those fears, they're making this Juneteenth day of celebration feel a little bit different. To many historians and advocates, today's redistricting fights are the latest chapter in a struggle that stretches from Reconstruction to the present day. It's been more than 160 years since black Americans became free. But many are wondering how much power that freedom truly gave us. Let's bring in President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Maya Wiley, and MS Now contributor Jelani Cobb, the Dean of Columbia's Journalism School and a New Yorker staff writer. No two people I'd rather be in conversation with today. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
It's lovely to see you. I guess I'll start with how you're both feeling and what it means to be us, to be black in this country right now with all that's unfolding around us.
Outraged. Outraged is my word, and we deserve to be outraged. We are righteously outraged, and at the same time, we are organizing. So I think the important thing to note, which you already did, was we have been and had our rights in the crosshairs for generations. And one of the things we remember about Juneteenth is that the troops were sent to Galveston, Texas on Juneteenth, not because all black people didn't know. In fact, black enslaved people knew that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed more than 2 years before. It's that it was required in order to try to protect the rights that the Civil War had conferred. I use that because today we have a federal government actually attacking the very rights that it once, at least with our demands, did some things to protect. And that comes in the form of everything from weaponizing the Department of Justice, a department which it was the black liberation struggle of the 1950s and 60s that created enforcement powers to protect black voters, to ensure that we had the true opportunity to vote. It was one of the things that we did when we said there has to be a civil rights division of the Department of Justice, and it doesn't just protect black people, except now it's being used as a weapon against our voting rights. We've just seen it in Ohio with the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, which has been very successful as a collaborative of organizations registering black people to vote in the swing state of Ohio. But this is the other thing. Nothing new under the sun. What has changed is the weaponization. What has changed is the outright intentionality of taking our rights away. That is something that is outrageous, and it is something that is highly motivating because we ain't going back.
Jelani, where do you see the greatest gap between what is on paper, the rights we allegedly have, and what we're currently experiencing?
Well, I mean, I think it's exactly that. When we look at the applicability of this, we talk about the kind of retreat from the idea that there even is such a thing as systemic racism, which this administration, has opposed, vehemently. But when we look at all of our key institutions, whether that be education, whether that be healthcare, whether that be the criminal justice system, we yield these disparities which correlate directly to racial categorization in this country. And it is a legacy of these practices. And the thing about Juneteenth that's significant is I always think about these things in the context of the 4th of July and Juneteenth coming so closely and being so proximate in the calendar. But it's a reminder, the 4th of July marks the anniversary of particular promises But Juneteenth indicates the extreme lengths that people were willing to go to avoid living up to their very own promises. And so you need the military to ensure freedom that should have been granted 2+ years prior. And I'll just make one last point about this. You know, it's always, whenever we talk about Juneteenth, I will tell you, Juneteenth and what happened in Texas was the rule, not the exception. Whenever emancipation came, or wherever abolition came, including in the North, there were attempts to thwart it and prevent people from gaining their freedom. And so we should think about that in the context of the struggles that we have to assure equal democracy today.
The other thing, in addition to that, the other thing that I try to tell people whenever I'm asked about it or I'm interviewing someone and they tell me, oh, the things you're talking about, the issues you're raising, they're from so long ago. This is all so far in the past. It really doesn't affect who we are today. Sometimes I show them this picture that I have that I think we can bring up on the screen, which is that is my father and his twin brother sitting on a couch next to their great-grandmother, who was born into slavery and was a slave for the first 6 years of her life. My father is only 66 years old, and she babysat and took care of him and his brothers for the first 6 years of their lives. So this history is with us. I mean, my father loved her and lived with her. I mean, you know, it is that close.
Yeah, it is very close to the surface here. And you know, when we start talking about, you know, these families, people are even surprised when you say, my parents went to segregated schools in Alabama and Georgia. And people believe this is like some distant relic of you know, the past. No, this is directly in our familial history. It is very close to our recollection.
Yes. But the other thing is we have so many proof points of intentional discrimination that has continued even very recently. I mean, the Supreme Court of the United States, which I now call the supremely unjust majority, actually said, even though it had acknowledged that the state of Alabama had intentionally discriminated against black voters and how they were drawing districts, it acknowledged the courts beneath it that found, after 1,000 pages of documents, several witnesses, that the discrimination, the racial discrimination, was intentional. The Supreme, I'm repeating it, the Supreme Court co-signed that finding and yet said, go on ahead and do it. That is today. That's not 40 years ago or 60 years ago or 250 years ago. That is now. And the other thing we should remember as we watch that incredible ceremony unfold at the Obama Library is that intentional statements were made by leaders of parties in states like Florida, Pennsylvania in 2011 saying, we can stop black people from voting. We can make it harder with voter ID laws because Barack Obama had won an election and he did it with a diverse coalition of people. So everything we're seeing play out right now is an attempt to whitewash white supremacy away. It's an attempt to whitewash the very violence in arms we saw on January 6th when we actually had a special prosecutor name voting rights and the denial of voting rights in the very indictments brought. That this is a present day, not a past thing.
Maya Wiley, Jelani Cobb, thank you both so much, and happy Juneteenth to you again.